Yo, what is going on YouTube? Welcome back to a new video. And before we begin, I just want to say thank you everybody for tuning in. It means the world to me that you guys have decided to join me on this journey of philosophy, I guess, finding truth, because this is a personal journey for me and I do hope to learn a lot more as I go on. We're very far from the very end, so we have a lot more people to discuss, and each week I've just been trying to stay on top of it for you guys as much as I can. So hopefully I'm doing a great job. But besides that, the first thing I'm going to talk about is this is the third of 4 videos I'm going to dedicate to Socrates right now, because I do feel like these 4 texts or these 4 dialogues that I am doing videos on are the most fundamental for Socrates. And then if you want to learn more or get deeper into his other dialogues, that's more like a specialized knowledge or specialized interest, I'd rather say. Secondly, I picked up some books we're going to go over really quickly. One of them is a leisurely read, and the other 3 are specifically for the iceberg chart. So the leisure read is this book here, The Prince by Machiavelli. Super excited to read this one. It's a little bit over 100 pages, but apparently super influential in politics. So, and then I picked up the Symposium by Plato and also the Republic, no surprise, by Plato. Yeah, that's everything for me. And now let's just hop into today's video. If you guys couldn't tell, today we're going to be talking about another dialogue called Crito by Plato. And this text right here is moments after Socrates gets his sentence, which is death. He's in prison right now, and Crito waits for Socrates to wake up, startles him, and basically his goal is to convince Socrates that he should flee from Athens and escape prison. And Socrates is open to the idea, we'll say, but he wants to see if Crito's ambition or if his zeal is valuable or if it's dangerous, depending on if escaping prison is going to be right or wrong, respectively. Because Socrates has grown up his entire life thinking any decision I make needs to be from reason and needs to be honorable and just and beautiful, I'm not going to make any decision until we come to an agreement on if this is right or wrong. Essentially, Crito has to convince Socrates that escaping prison is right. And he does this in 3 ways. The first argument that Crito has is that if Crito doesn't successfully help Socrates escape prison and flee the city-state of Athens, Crito's reputation will be tarnished. Crito, being a wealthy Athenian, he's basically saying that he's worried about what other people are thinking about him. Even though Socrates knows their relationship is solid, right? But Crito, being wealthy, and back then and even honestly now, if we're going to really talk about that, but it's not much for somebody who has wealth and connections and influence to get somebody, i.e. their friend, get their charges dropped, or even helping them escape and live in exile, I guess. And that first argument felt more like self-pity and selfish than anything else. It wasn't really anything particularly special about this argument to convince Socrates to flee. But Socrates goes on and shuts that down, but even says on top of that, 1, the opinion of the many shouldn't matter, because the only thing that should matter is the opinion of the wisest person, the person who understands morals and value and judgment. In the last text, we understood that the Oracle of Delphi has claimed Socrates to be the wisest man. And with that in mind, in context, we also understand that if Socrates is saying that, we don't go to just the general public if we want to get trained, we go to an actual trainer, an expert trainer, we shouldn't go to the general public about what is good and what's valuable and what is virtuous. We should only go to the person that is an expert in that, Socrates. Also, he goes on and talks about how we shouldn't do evil onto evil. Just because the Athenian jury sentenced Socrates to death, which is an evil thing to do, doesn't mean that Socrates needs to return that favor and do something, pretty much dishonorable. And Crito agrees, and the whole dishonor thing opens up in this next argument where Crito says that if he doesn't, flee, Crito and the rest of Socrates' friends are going to lose out on Socrates. So Socrates is being selfish, and he pretty much responds back and says how living a good life, or as he put it in the Apology, an examined life, is more important than just life itself. Socrates even wants to go deeper into this by saying, more than just what the consent of the Athenian people were to say, what about the laws itself? What would the laws say to me? How would they respond to this act of me escaping the laws that are imposed on me? The laws pretty much say, because Socrates' parents were married and, gave birth to Socrates in Athens, his entire existence is owed to Athens. Secondly, Socrates went to school and even conducted his philosophy in Athens, by asking people, inquiring on the people of Athens only. So his education itself is owed to Athens. And then lastly, the law of Athens allowed Socrates to leave whenever he wanted to. When he became of age and he understood the laws of Athens, if he didn't agree with it, he could have left. He could have gone to any other city if he wanted to, but he never decided to go there. So he must love Athens. And if he doesn't like their laws, the city of Athens even allows their citizens to try to convince the state that their laws are unjust and unfair. But if you fail to do that, you still have to abide by the rules. In the Apology, Socrates failed at convincing the jury that what he was doing wasn't unjust or wasn't impious or impious, right? If he were to just flee and he goes to a good, well-established city, that city is going to look at him as a corrupter, right? He even says, for he who is a corrupter of the laws is more than likely to be the corrupter of the young and foolish portion of mankind. So not only is he going to be seen as somebody who doesn't abide by the laws, but whatever he was running from must be true. Like, that's implied. And even more than that, just like, what place would take somebody who ran from a good city, Athens? Like, everybody's trying to come into Athens, and you're running out of Athens because you can't abide by the laws. So how does that really make you look? Socrates even goes further into this, and he talks about how he will lose integrity by doing this. How can he pretty much talk about what is just and what is fair and what is evil and dishonorable, and he's doing these exact things? Like, it's almost like it's hypocritical. Crito can't really disagree with any of these things. Like, he doesn't have an answer for that. So Socrates, he talks about the last thing, which is how if Socrates doesn't flee, he's going to be deserting his kids, and it's Socrates' responsibility, better yet, it's his obligation to raise his own sons in Athens and educate them. If Socrates were to flee, and if he were to bring his boys there, then he's actually doing them a harm, because they're not getting the proper education or the best education according to Socrates, which is in Athens. So he's actually harming his sons because of that. So then he says, okay, if I flee, are my friends, can I not trust my friends to still raise them and educate them in the state of Athens? Crito was like, yeah, of course. And then he's like, okay, so then if I were to not flee and still die, pretty sure I can still rely on you guys to take care of my sons. Crito's like, yeah. So then Socrates is like, so then it doesn't matter. Like, it's more harmful if I were to flee and take my sons than if I were to die. You know, there's no difference in that if I were to just die then. I'd rather just do no harm than do a harm and all these other evils that come with it, essentially. For just consider, if you transgress and err in this sort of way, what good will you do, either to yourself or to your friends? That your friends will be driven into exile and deprived of citizenship, or will lose their property, is tolerably certain. And you yourself, if you fly to one of the neighboring cities, as, for example, Thebes or Megara, both of which are well-governed cities, will come to them as an enemy, Socrates, and their government will be against you, and all patriotic citizens will cast an evil eye upon you as a subverter of the laws, and you will confirm in the minds of the judges the justice of their own condemnation of you. For he who is a corrupter of the laws is more than likely to be the corrupter of the young and foolish portion of mankind. Will you then flee from well-ordered cities and virtuous men, and is existence worth having on these terms? Or will you have to go to them without shame and talk to them, Socrates? And what will you say to them? Will you say here about virtue and justice and institutions and law being the best things among men? Would that be decent of you? Surely not. But if you go away from well-governed states to Crito's friends in Thessaly, where there is great disorder and license, they will be charmed to have the tale of your escape from prison, set off with ludicrous particulars of the manner in which you were wrapped in a goatskin or some other disguise. But will there be no one to remind you that in your old age you violated the most sacred laws from a miserable desire of a little more life? Perhaps not, if you keep them in good temper, but if they are out of temper, you will hear many degrading things. You will live, but how? As the flatterer of all men, and the servant of all men, and doing what? Eating and drinking in Thessaly, having gone abroad in order that you may get a dinner? And where will be your fine sentiments about justice and virtue then? All right, so what can we take from this dialogue? I've been looking around online to see like what other people's opinions are on this. And some people argue that Socrates is contradicting himself when you compare what he's talking about here to the Apology. And for me, the question seems to rise up when he said that he will continue to practice his philosophy regardless of the punishment or the exile, and that was in the Apology. But in this dialogue in Crito, Socrates says essentially that he's going to follow the rules. But the reason why I personally don't agree with the contradiction thing is because Socrates is practicing philosophy because he feels like, according to Apollo, this is a mission ordained by the gods for Socrates to find a man wiser than him so he can prove to the gods that he's not the wisest. This isn't Socrates just breaking the laws just to break the laws. He's actually conducting what he feels is honorable and pious, holy, right? And I can see why, if people just view it surface level, like, oh, I'm going to break the rules because I think I'm above them versus I'm going to break the rules now just because I'm in prison, how it can sound hypocritical. But I feel like it'd be more hypocritical if Socrates doesn't actually live by his truth and find out what is truly virtuous and not do evil unto evil than to flee, and live in exile. Something else that I took away from this dialogue is that Socrates, although it seems like he's pretty sharp most of the time and it seems like he knows everything, I can tell that he's very open to new ideas that would help him continue to practice this search for truth and philosophy and what's beauty, disregard of whatever punishment or exile. Because Socrates, again, didn't completely deny Crito the idea or the opportunity to escape. You know, he was open to it. It's just Socrates wants to make sure that if we were going to do this, it better be for the right reason. And if you couldn't tell at this point, Crito didn't do his job. He didn't convince Socrates to escape. So for me, I feel like I personally admire Socrates for his just stance on what he feels is valuable, what he feels is virtuous, what he feels is just, and to do nothing else regardless of the circumstance. You know, he's staying true to who he is, and that's very admirable in my opinion. And then also something interesting that I've gotten into, which when I read it, I was like, there's no way they're talking about this early, but I didn't know. But social contract theory is a pretty old concept, but it didn't really get popularized and further detailed until Thomas Hobbes, I believe, and the Leviathan. And Hobbes is actually a part of this iceberg chart. I believe he's on tier 2. So we're going to get to his work when we get to tier 2. We'll definitely talk more about the social contract theory at that point. But for now, yeah, man, that was Crito by Plato. Very, very straightforward piece of text. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next week on the next video. Thank you again, everybody. I really, really mean it. Thank you so much. Please share this video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below. Let me know if I got something wrong too, or if I skipped something important. But yeah, see you guys on the next one. Peace out.